Yo, what is up, everybody? It is Riley's Redzone here, back with another NFL video, and today I'm bringing my Week 3 game picks / predictions. And last week, I did okay. I didn't do as well as the first week. The first week I was 12-4, and last week I went 11-5. But besides the Saints game, all the other games I was incorrect about were upsets that I chose that, didn't happen. But if you don't take any of those upsets, you're going to end up losing some picks. So I took some chances. You miss every shot you don't take. So I took some predictions for the upsets, didn't get them, but 11-5 isn't too bad. Now this week, the Thursday night game already happened, and you would know if you followed my Twitter at Riley Redzone, nice little plug right there, that I picked the Jaguars. I posted that. So follow me there to, on Thursdays, find out who I'm picking in case I haven't gotten this video up by then. So I will be on Twitter posting who I am picking that week. But I got that wrong. I picked the Jaguars. I thought Minshew would continue to be good, but he wasn't. So with that being said, now I'm predicting the rest of the picks this week. And hopefully I can get a lot right again. So here are my Week 3 NFL game picks, breaking down game by game. First game I'm going to talk about is the Watt Brothers game, aka Texans versus Steelers. So this is going to be a fun one. Kind of surprised this was a noon game, but this should be a really good one. But the Texans, I like a lot this year, but man, do they have the toughest schedule I think I've seen this year. They had to play the Chiefs week 1, who literally won the Super Bowl last year. The Ravens, who had probably, you could say, the best regular season of any team last year. And now the Steelers, who have one of the best defenses, if not, in my opinion, the best defense in the NFL. That is just tough. And without DeAndre Hopkins, too, that's difficult for Deshaun Watson. I really like Deshaun Watson this year, but I just don't think that they can get off to a hot start with this tough schedule. So I have the Steelers winning. I think this defense is going to be too much. The Texans, like I said, Deshaun Watson's good, but they don't have a pure number one receiver. Will Fuller has kind of stepped up to take that role, but there's no DeAndre Hopkins on this team, and they probably are wishing they had one. And David Johnson has looked okay, considering how mad Texans fans were for trading, DeAndre Hopkins for him. I think he's looked okay. He's shown some flashes of his former self, but he is not going to take over the game by himself. So Deshaun Watson really, in the offensive line, is just terrible. Specifically, I don't like the right side with Titus Howard at right tackle. I think that if they line TJ Watt up over him, that's going to be domination right there. So I really think that the Steelers' defense is going to be way too much for the Texans' offense. And I still think people are underrating Ben Roethlisberger this year. He was hurt last year, and people kind of forgot about him. But I think he's way up there as a great player. He's really got a connection with Juju this season. And with Deontay Johnson stepping up, that's big for them as well. So I'm picking the Steelers. They're actually favored by 4. I would say that's about accurate. I think it's going to be relatively close, but I think Deshaun Watson will, counter some of the weaknesses that is on this Texans offense, but it's just not going to be enough. So Steelers, I think, get the win. Now, as a Vikings fan, as I've mentioned in previous videos, they're not doing very good. But people are already jumping on the tank for Trevor, fail for Fields, hype train, and I just don't think you can do that yet. You can't do it quite yet. I'm not saying the Vikings get a win this week, but I think this will be close. I don't think you can lose hope yet. They've played a really tough team in the Packers. The Colts, it was a bit of a shocker to lose that there, but if Kirk can bounce back a little bit, I think he'll be competitive. But right now, the Vikings have a huge weakness at defensive tackle, stopping the run. They let Jonathan Taylor run all over them. So Derrick Henry is probably going to do very well. And Tennessee has Taylor Lewan as a great offensive lineman. They have a decent offensive line, and the Vikings have also struggled with their pass rush. So I really think they need Danielle Hunter back as soon as possible. And I mentioned that in their Week 1 pick, that I think he is seriously missing him as a game changer. Now with Anthony Barr out, it's not looking very good. But for Tennessee, I think they're doing pretty well. Derrick Henry hasn't been super as amazing as he was last season, but I think he does very well this week. A.J. Brown hurts, but the Vikings corners are literally can't cover, they couldn't cover more than T.Y. Hilton last week, and literally Marquez Valdes-Scantling, they're getting burnt, even with their starters. Now they're missing a few. So that's going to be no problem for them. They can go to Jonnu Smith, or Corey Davis has been doing pretty well, honestly, for the Titans. That's good for him to step up for them. But I also think the defensive talent for Tennessee with Jadeveon Clowney and some other, Harold Landry is another good one to mention. Those guys are going to do very well against the Vikings offensive line this week. So I think the Titans are just a little too much. It does help that the Vikings are at home. It's only a 3-point spread, and I think that's about accurate, as normally the Vikings are good at home, but this season with no fans, that could be different. So I'm picking the Titans this week. Bears-Falcons, this might be my upset of the week. I am, in one way, not surprised the Falcons are favored to win by 3.5 because they're at home. They did well for the first half against the Cowboys, but they obviously choked it, just like they did the Super Bowl. But I think there's a good chance they bounce back very quickly, and they do super well. I could very much see that happening. But for me, the game changer is Julio Jones. He is questionable right now. He's a game-time decision. So even, if you're playing fantasy, you're going to start Julio Jones. But I think he will be a little banged up and not perform quite what he normally is. And without him, yes, they have Calvin Ridley, and Russell Gage has been doing pretty well, but he really is the guy that takes away the double teams. I've seen it, last week. I think Calvin Ridley's doing well, partly because Julio is there to take the double team, because you're going to double team Julio even if he is injured, because if you don't, he could take advantage of that. So the Bears, I don't love Mitch Trubisky, but all credit to him, he has been playing pretty well. He is getting it done in the fourth quarter, and that's all that matters. So I think that they pull off the upset. Kind of shocking, as going into the season, I was a pretty big fan here of the Falcons, but I knew they'd have a tough schedule, and that's what I think has happened here. They had the Seahawks, and they got dominated in that one. They should have won last week, but I did pick the Cowboys last week, and they ended up winning. Those are both, I think, solid teams. The Seahawks are a top team, not the top, but one of the best in the NFC, and then the Cowboys are probably a fringe playoff level, and the Bears at this point look like a fringe playoff level team as well, at least with their wins so far. They have only beaten the Lions and the Giants, but they've looked pretty good. So I'm picking the Bears, which is an upset. Once again, I am surprised that they actually are favored to lose, which is shocking, but I'm taking the Bears. Raiders-Patriots. The Raiders have proved me wrong twice. I've picked against them both times. I just am not a fan of the way their team is built. But you know what? They're looking pretty good. I'm not but don't worry, I'm not flipping all the way where they're going to beat the Patriots, but I definitely will now keep an eye out on the Raiders as maybe a fringe playoff level team in the AFC. But I love the Patriots this year. I picked them against the Seahawks last week and almost pulled that off. I was going to be so happy if the Patriots somehow won that and I got that pick right, but came down to the last play, they didn't do it. But what we learned in that game is Cam Newton can run this offense pretty well, and specifically that goal line package is going to be unstoppable against certain teams. So, and I think the Raiders honestly will be one of those teams. I think that if they get inside the 5-yard line, they're just giving it to Cam Newton, put out all the linemen and the fullback and the tight ends, and you're going to get some touchdowns off of that. So I think the Patriots are able to win. This is accurate. I think that the spread is -6. I could see a blowout with the Patriots dominating, or it's going to be super close, and the Patriots barely squeak out a win by about 6. That seems about accurate. But I just love Cam Newton so far this season. I think he is a huge favorite for Comeback Player of the Year. Have been a fan of it since they signed him. And I am picking the Bills to do pretty well this season. But I think that people are kind of sleeping on the Patriots for still winning the AFC East. And once again, the Raiders, they've proved me wrong. I've been picking against them, but they've been winning. But if I flip too soon, I think it's going to come to bite me. So I am sticking with my gut here and going with the Patriots this week. They are at home, so I think they will get a win. 49ers, Giants. This may be the toughest game to pick this week. If the Niners were full health, this is just a blowout. Like, Niners absolutely dominate. But they're not. They don't have their quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo's hurt. They don't have Raheem Mostert or Tevin Coleman. But I think they're going to be fine at running back because they have Jerick McKinnon, and Jeff Wilson will be an okay backup. So I think they're fine there. They are also missing Nick Bosa for the year and Solomon Thomas for the year, and Dee Ford is currently out. Ouch is right. That is. And George Kittle. How did I not even mention George Kittle? But once again, they have Jordan Reed, and that was a great pickup. So, they are banged up. This is probably the worst injury team right now. It seems all the time, it's always the Eagles, the Chargers, and then now the 49ers. Tough luck. But the Giants have just not been good. Saquon is out as well. They signed Devontae Freeman, but this Giants team, I'm not a huge fan of Daniel Jones. Haven't been since they picked him. I think he's an okay level. He might be, if he develops, he is, in my opinion, exactly what Kirk Cousins is. He's an okay quarterback. He's not going to ever kind of carry you to a Super Bowl, but you could do a lot worse than Kirk Cousins / Daniel Jones. So, this is very close. There could be upset, especially with the Giants at home. Also, weren't the 49ers players actually last week? What's so interesting is they played the Jets last week in MetLife, and now they played another New York team, same stadium, and they complained about the turf, which if just MetLife fix up your turf if that is a serious issue. So this could be an upset here. The 49ers are actually favored, so the Giants could win, but I think that Nick Mullins is going to hold on to this team. I think they end up barely squeaking out with the win, but I think the Niners get a win against the Giants, even though they are very much injury-riddled. Bengals, Eagles. So I've picked the Eagles 2 weeks in a row, and they've disappointed me. They are 0-2, but the Bengals I picked last week, and they also disappointed me. Joe Burrow has looked spectacular. Cincinnati, you've got a great quarterback for years to come. Carson Wentz has not looked great, but I need to stay with the Eagles. I feel like if I jump ship too early, that it's going to come to bite me here. So I think that the Eagles are able to get their first win. This should be pretty close. This should be a fun one to watch. Joe Burrow and Carson Wentz. This should be very entertaining. It probably will be close. Eagles are favored by 5 currently. And I'd say that is about accurate. I think they will get the win. They're coming back to health a little bit. They have Lane Johnson and Miles Sanders is back. And Jalen Reagor being out definitely hurts the deep threat, but they also still have Deshaun Jackson. Hopefully soon they can get Alshon Jeffrey back. And I think they'll be able to bounce back and maybe fight for the division. It's between them and the Cowboys is what I've been thinking this whole time, but the football team has looked pretty good too. So this is going to be kind of a tough division, at least how close it's going to be. I don't know if any of those teams are top tier. I think all 4 teams in the NFC West are honestly better than anybody in the NFC East, in my opinion. But I think the Eagles are able to get a win here and hopefully go on their quest to get that division championship. But don't worry, Bengals fans. Burrow has looked very good, and they'll, I think, get some wins this season, maybe even some upsets. So I'm picking the Eagles, but this should be a close one. Football team versus Browns. So I don't know when people started hopping on the Browns bandwagon again, because looking at the spread, they're favored to win by 7.5 points. And to me, this is very shocking because the Browns they were absolutely dominated by the Ravens, like a lot of teams, but then they barely squeaked out a win against the Bengals. And I mean barely. Like, I picked the Bengals, and they almost came back. Now, what I'm more shocked here, Washington, yes, they got dominated last week by the Cardinals. Like I mentioned, I think the Cardinals are spectacular. I think Kyler Murray is in the MVP race. So I don't think you can just write off the football team that quickly. They came back against the Eagles week 1, and it seems to me they are very rallied behind Dwayne Haskins and Ron Rivera. I think they seem to have a lot of motivation, and I think that they can pull off an upset here. I'm very shocked the spread is so high. I think Haskins performs well this week. I have not liked the way Baker's been playing. I think this is overall just the biggest surprise to me of the spreads this week. Looking at it as well, it's actually, I believe, the second highest spread of the week, and I'm shocked it's this game that is that high. I think this is going to be a very close game, and I think the football team, Washington here, pulls off the upset. That defense is just spectacular. So, I'm going with the Washington football team, and technically, I think looking at the spread terms, my biggest upset this week, and I think overall this season so far. So, like I said in the beginning of the video, you miss every shot you don't take, so if I'm wrong, it happened. But if I get it right, I look like a genius here for getting this huge upset pick. So, I think the football team pulls it off this week. Rams, Bills, this might be one of my favorite games this week. I think it's going to be very close. Both teams are 2-0, and on paper, honestly, I'm starting to think like the Rams might have a very good shot in this game because they, in my opinion, have beaten better teams over the first 2 weeks. They beat the Cowboys and the Eagles, and the Bills beat the Jets and the Dolphins. So I think that the Rams have put up maybe a better, they've played better teams, but the Bills have put up a lot better performance, and I think that Josh Allen is playing super well, and also Stephon Diggs is proving to be why they traded for him, and it kind of shows like Allen just needed that number one receiver, and now he's got it. So the Rams have been looking good. Like I mentioned, this is going to be a very close game. The spread is currently -1.5 for the Bills. That is completely accurate. I think this is going to be a very, very, very close game. This might be, I feel like if Packers, Saints, and Ravens, Chiefs didn't happen, I think that this should be like a Sunday night game or at least a 3:25 game, but it isn't. So this should be a good one. Probably one of the better games of the noon window. So I'm picking the Bills purely based on Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. To be honest, I think their offense is just performing very well, but Rams are performing very well as also. So this should be a very close one, but I'm taking the Bills with that offense. Jets, Colts. Right now, if I'm being honest, I think the Jets are the worst team in football at the moment. But the Colts are not spectacular. They beat the Vikings, which the Vikings have just not performed very well. So they're in the middle, I'd say. But to me, they're bottom. They're not higher than, let's say you're doing power rankings. They're for sure not higher than 20. In my opinion, they wouldn't be higher than maybe like 24. I think that they're still down. I think Rivers will eventually collapse, if I'm being honest. I love the signing for the Colts. He'll get you like some wins that they maybe wouldn't have gotten last year with Jacoby Brissett, but I don't think he's going to be the quarterback that can lead them to the playoffs or lead them to a Super Bowl. So I'm kind of surprised by the spread, but not completely. It's more, in one way, I'm surprised it's so high because the Colts aren't super amazing, but they are favored by 11.5. But then you realize, like, it's the Jets, and the Jets are hurt with injuries. Like, they're without Le'Veon Bell, Jamison Crowder, Denzel Mims, George Fant, their right tackle. They're missing a lot of key pieces, and I just feel bad for Sam Darnold, and I hope he doesn't get replaced after this year. But if you're the New York Jets and you end up with like a top 5 pick even, you've got 3 quarterbacks in this draft, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance, that all are probably worth a top 5 to 10 pick. So we could see a, Josh Rosen, Kyler Murray situation, that type of thing here. But I think Sam Darnold can develop. He just needs to go somewhere with a good surrounding pieces, as the Jets are literally probably one of the worst organizations in football right now. So I'm picking the Colts, even though I don't love the Colts team this year. But the Jets are just so bad right now, to be honest. So Colts get the win. Panthers, Chargers. So this game is going to be interesting. I guess it's the Chargers are favored to win by 6.5. I think these teams are kind of in a similar level. I think the Chargers are overall better at the end of the season, but I do like the Panthers this year. I picked them against the Raiders week 1, but I think that Herbert actually performed pretty well last week, nearly beat the Chiefs. But part of that could be the whole, I've talked about it a lot on my podcast and other videos, that the coming off the bench factor is, to me, a very underrated piece of football at the quarterback position. I mean, you think about it, right? Why has Ryan Fitzpatrick always been good, when he comes out of nowhere? It's because the defense is preparing for the other guy, and then a guy can change from year to year. So if you're studying Ryan Fitzpatrick tape from years ago, he's just going to come out of nowhere for you, and we saw that last season with Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill is still doing good this season, but he performed amazing last year because he replaced Mariota. So I don't think this game is a fluke per se from Herbert, but I don't think he's going to perform that well. Again, as we did see we saw some potential, and we also saw the fatal flaw that he has, which is some of those bad decision turnovers. He only made one, cost him the game kind of decision, which was on the 3rd and 2 where he rolled out to the left. He had probably 5 yards of space in front of him, could have easily gotten the first down, but instead he tried to chuck it downfield, and it was double covered. He will make one of those plays pretty much every game. That's what you get from watching him in Oregon. But I do think he is right now the spark that they need. I feel bad for Tyrod. If you haven't heard, Tyrod had a rib injury, and before the game, the team doctor gave him an injection, which, I'm going to shout out here to the Pat McAfee show. I watched one of the videos, and apparently this is a kind of common injection to make the pain of the rib injury he had less painful. But there is, one of those fine print things that says, you could unfortunately have a ruptured lung. It's very unfortunate, but that happened. It's very unlikely, but it did happen, unfortunately. So I feel bad for Tyrod because, honestly, with the way Herbert played last week, I don't know if he's getting his job back. And although Anthony Lynn, at first everyone was like, well, Herbert's not your starter after what he just did, it makes sense because this is right now, Tyrod might still have the job because he didn't perform terrible. But if Herbert gets you a few wins in a row, I don't know how you can go back. So they are favored here. The Chargers are favored by 6.5. I like this Panthers defense, but they just need a little bit of time. They have a new coach. They have a lot of young players. They spent their whole entire draft on defense, so they just need a little bit of time to develop. But you're seeing some potential with the Teddy Bridgewater, Robbie Anderson connection. Also, Christian McCaffrey's out, so that's a huge loss. So Mike Davis is nowhere near Christian McCaffrey. Nobody is, but Mike Davis is literally the definition of a backup running back, in my opinion. So this is going to be interesting to watch Herbert, but I think he is able to get a win this week. Lions, Cardinals. I love the Cardinals. I've been saying that this whole time. I may have picked against them in week 1. I picked the Niners, but I mentioned it in the video. I'm all riding the Cardinals hype train this season, and that happened last week. I think Kyler Murray is my favorite for MVP. Right now it's between him and Russell Wilson. Right now you'd probably give it to Russell Wilson, but in my opinion, by the end of the season, Kyler Murray might have the MVP. So they are just performing super well on offense. DeAndre Hopkins was that piece they needed to fit the puzzle for the Cardinals, and Kenyon Drake's been good as well. So the Lions, they've been okay. They've obviously underperformed. They've lost, but Stafford has been okay. Definitely you can get the nickname Pat Stafford, because he is a garbage time quarterback. That's what Blake Bortles was at one point. I think Galladay really is a key piece of this offense. They are really struggling without him. You do like to see, the running backs doing pretty good for Lions here, but missing Galladay is just hurting Stafford very badly. So I think that the Cardinals are able to get the win here pretty cleanly. This could, I could see the Lions making a good comeback or maybe a close game, but I think the Cardinals are able to get the win. I love Kyler Murray this season, and their defense is decent as well. With Chandler Jones specifically is a great edge rusher, so I'm also excited to see how Isaiah Simmons kind of develops this year. So I think the Cardinals get a pretty easy win this week. Cowboys, Seahawks. Seahawks have been outstanding. Russell Wilson performing like a top quarterback. Like I said, right now he might be the favorite for MVP. The Cowboys, though, are kind of, in my opinion, going to go like 8-8, 9-7 range. The Seahawks are not the top team in the NFC or anything like that long term, in my opinion. I think the Niners and Saints will kind of bounce back, but right now, you could make a case they are. I think they're not necessarily the favorite to win the Super Bowl like a lot of people think, or they're a top team. I think they are, though. If you let Russ cook, they're outstanding. So Cowboys, you like to see Aldon Smith going a little bit, getting some edge rush there, but I think that Seahawks are able to get a win here. That offense is just unstoppable right now, with Metcalf really stepping up, and if Russ wants to, he can throw to Tyler Lockett. I think this is a very kind of easy win. Honestly, the Cowboys performed very well last week, making that comeback, but I think that the Seahawks are just on fire right now. So it's going to take a really, really good team or a top team to kind of get them off their momentum. So I have the Seahawks winning. Bucs, Broncos. Now, although the Buccaneers maybe haven't performed to what their media hype kind of was, they've still done okay, and I'm very shocked that the spread here, they're only favored to win by 5.5 because the Broncos have just gotten unlucky with injuries. I mean, even the Broncos Twitter put 2020, can you please stop? I mean, this is Drew Lock, Phillip Lindsay, Cortland Sutton done for the year, Von Miller done for the year, and I don't know how the spread is only 5.5. I mean, Jeff Driscoll is a great substitute. He filled in last year, I believe, for the Lions a little bit, or it might have been the year before, honestly, for the Bengals. He's played with both of them, and now he signed with the Broncos. I just don't know how the spread is only this low. I just feel bad for the Broncos. I think that they're at home, but they are so hurt with injuries. So I think the Bucs pull off an easy win here. Just once again, kind of unfortunate with all the injuries that the Broncos have. So I think the Bucs with Tom Brady, they go out, get a win, even with Godwin banged up, Evans kind of banged up. I think they go ahead and they get a win, just because the injuries are way too much for the Broncos. Packers, Saints, and in literally just about any other week, this is number 1 game. But this week, it's number 2. But it is Sunday Night Football, and I'm actually taking the upset here. I think the Packers are just on fire. They are on a hot streak right now. They will get out of it, don't worry. They will eventually, get a loss. But right now, they seem pretty unstoppable. They, I think, could also, it's them and the Seahawks who seem really, really good in the NFC. So, also the big factor, in my opinion, Michael Thomas out. Drew Brees just did not look great last week. Now, I think people are overreacting just a little bit, but not having Michael Thomas definitely hurts. So, I am picking the Packers. Even though the Saints are at home, Drew Brees he didn't look amazing, but once again, don't overreact to it. He's still Drew Brees, but not quite Drew Brees that he was last year. So, I think the Packers get an upset. I think that this offense right now with Devontae Adams, spectacular. Aaron Jones is just going crazy. right now, and I just don't think Emmanuel Sanders stepped up enough and Traquan Smith to really fulfill the Michael Thomas role that was already on the Saints team. So I think the Packers get a win this week. They go into New Orleans and they pull off an upset. I don't know if they'll put up 40 again. I doubt that, but I think that they get the win this week in an upset. Chiefs, Ravens, best game of the week. Now, I'm actually taking the upset here. This is by far the closest game. Probably the game I'm least confident about, especially with the Ravens at home. I think they'll have a lot of motivation, to be honest. But I think the Chiefs pull off an upset. I think the Chiefs are kind of, honestly, they came into the season overrated, in my opinion. Like, I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl again. But now they're kind of being underrated because they barely beat the Chargers last week. The offense performed fine for Kansas City. And like I said, the coming off the bench factor, you know, the defense was not ready to go after Justin Herbert. If it was Tyrod Taylor, they probably would have called some different stuff. And, you know, because Tyrod's a lot more mobile. So that is what Lamar is this week. So I will be interested. The Ravens won last regular season. So what's so weird to me is how these teams have not played in the playoffs yet, because I know they're going to, maybe an AFC championship, but I think they are going to at some point. So this might be the best game this week, one of the best games of the season, honestly. But I am picking the Chiefs in an upset, but this one I'm probably least confident about. I could very much see the Ravens pulling a win here, but I have the Chiefs pulling the upset because I just think people, once again, are kind of doubting them after last week. But I think they bounce back. So, I think they get the win here. Thank you so much for watching this week's game picks. A little longer than the previous ones, just because I think now we have a lot more sample size of what these teams are actually good at, which players are making some impacts. So, I think that now I can talk a little bit more about specific players and how they're doing this season, and not always just the past. So, thank you for tuning into this whole episode. If you're still watching right now, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy football content. I know a majority of you, yes, YouTube Studio tells me that, are not subscribed. So please click the subscribe button if you like football content. If you like this video specifically, hit the like button and comment down below if you have any objections. You may disagree with the pick I have or anything like that, so let me know. Once again, follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Redzone. You can listen to my podcast, The Redzone Review, on Spotify, Apple, all your other favorite podcasting services. And I'm really looking forward to hopefully getting some content out here that is unique. I think I've got a video coming out soon that should be kind of a little comedic. It's NFL related, so that should hopefully be coming out soon. Also, I'll try to get another video of the Dolphins franchise uploaded. So, with that being said, thanks for watching.